year we're going to focus on Rabbi Gershon Henoch of Radzin Ishbitz. Is the third Rebbe of Ishbitz in the Shalshelis in the family of Ishbitz. We mentioned last week that many of the Hasidic dynasties didn't just have a clear succession of a son that all of the followers went with, but many of them had a succession with the senior disciple having many, and sometimes even most of the Chassidim following the senior disciple. So, interestingly enough, Rabbi Yaakov of Ishbitz, who towards the end of his or the middle of his career moved to Radzin, his father's most prestigious student was Rabbi Gershon, who then went to Lublin and opened up his own Hasidic court. And because a lot of people were in Lublin, he got a lot of the Chassidim. He got a majority of the Chassidim. One of the most famous students of the Mei Shlach, of the Ishbitz Rebbe, was Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. And Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin became the Rebbe after Leibel Eger. So in a sense, he was the contemporary of Gershon Henoch. And there's similarities and there are differences between them, and we'll mention some of them later. But it's interesting to see how you have like the third generation, how it develops both in the family and outside of the family, but still people who consider themselves loyal to the teachings of the Mei Shlach. I would say, just in a brief overview, that in the personality and teachings and writings of Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin, even though there's a lot of Zohar and a lot of Kabbalistic teachings, his idea was to synthesize Talmud with the Kabbalah and give a philosophical underpinning to the traditions both of the Lithuanian yeshiva world as well as the Pshischa school of Hasidism that was the originator of Kutsk and therefore Ishbitz, which emphasized Talmud over Kabbalah, to have a philosophical underpinning to the importance of Talmud within the context of Jewish mysticism. That Talmud, in fact, one of the things that he did was to reconcile a debate from over a century earlier.
This is Reb
Tzadok HaKohen between the Vilna Gaon and the followers of the Vilna Gaon, like the Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim of Volozhin, and the students of the Baal Shem Tov. Most notably the Baal HaTanya, the Alter Rebbe of Chabad, about whether or not Torah study could be a detraction from your dveikut, from your cleaving to God, which, in the words of the Baal Shem Tov and his disciples, you had to stop learning Torah to meditate on God, because Torah itself can also be you're so caught up in the ideas, the intellect of Torah, that you forget about God. They quoted an earlier scholar who said, I think it was the Shalah, that many people studied Torah, but they forgot about the person who gave the Torah. And the Nefesh HaChaim, which is one of the main disciples, if not the main disciple of the Vilna Gaon, in his book, Nefesh HaChaim, he explains, he kind of attacks that Hasidic concept that you have to stop learning to meditate on God, and says there is God and learning are one and the same. There's no separation between them. And in a sense, Reb Tzadok HaKohen reconciles the two and explains how you could have kind of mindfulness without having to stop learning. So that's his In fact, to give you a sense of who Reb Tzadok Cohen is, from a intuitive way, there's a young fellow here, actually he's older than me, but he's very youthful, who comes from Lakewood, from a rabbinic family in Lakewood, and he rebelled against his upbringing. He spent many years learning Gemara, and part of his rebellion, besides for first becoming not religious for a number of years, eventually he found Chassidism. That was also part of his rebellion. He went to Uman, came to the Kalmach Shul, and that became part of his rebellion. So, and he would come to my shiurim, including my Rosh Chodesh shir. So when he would come to the Rosh Chodesh shir, Reb Tzadok usually has like 5-10 pages on Rosh Chodesh. And he would, whenever he'd hear me during Reb Tzadok, he said, it doesn't connect to me. It's like my upbringing. So that is like showing you that even though Reb Tzadok is like, he's a Rebbe. He became the Rebbe after Label Eger. But he was a Litvak before he became a Chassid. And he was a Gaon. He was a tremendous genius, went through the Talmud supposedly every month. He never ate a meal without making a siyum before eating. So if it was a long Masechta like Baba Basra, he had to spend 7 hours doing it instead of 3 hours of shorter Masechta. So he was a tremendous genius. But that was, I would say Reb Tzadok, that's a very, very broad statement, but Reb Tzadok was the one who made peace, so to speak, between, and even till today, if you want to get to a Litvisha person, you use Reb Tzadok. That can get to them. You can also use the Sfas Emes, who's also a branch of Pshischa and Katz. Because the first Ger Rebbe was the continuation of Katz, although you could say it didn't exactly flow directly the way Katz was into Ger, but he was the main disciple of the Katzker Rebbe.
Sfas Emes?
No, his grandfather. And then the Sfas Emes was kind of the embodiment of that emphasis of Talmud, not just Jewish mysticism. But now, how does that differentiate from Rabbi Gershon Henoch? I think Rabbi Gershon Henoch, his main thesis was to bring back the study of Zohar and the study of the Arizal into Chassidism.
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
The Radzin, yeah. Now, you could say, what do you mean? Isn't everything in Chassidus based on the Arizal, which is, according to the Arizal, based on the Zohar? So, what's the chiddush of the Radzin of Gershon Henoch? That would be any Chassidic Rebbe. So the truth is that the Baal Shem Tov specifically used terminology that didn't use the symbolism, much of the symbolism that the Kabbalists used, because the difference in a historical perspective between the Baal Shem Tov and the Kabbalists before him, and even during his lifetime, was that the Kabbalists were a very elite group with a closed system that you could only break into after being initiated by somebody who essentially studied with you for years till you really began to understand some of the meaning of these